Welcome back to the Rundown Lab, where we break down and fact check the biggest health podcasts. We know your time is valuable, but when you can, we always recommend catching the full episode. Links are in the description. What if I told you that a recent study found people losing over 1.5 pounds of fat while gaining 2.5 pounds of muscle just from adding one simple white powder to their routine? That's the promise made in a recent episode of Thomas DeLauer's channel, where he breaks down the science of creatine supplementation. But how much of this holds up to scrutiny? Let's dig in. In this video, DeLauer covers creatine from multiple angles: how it's stored in the body, its effects on muscle and fat, cognitive benefits, optimal dosing, and even some fascinating claims about mitochondrial function. There's a lot to unpack here, and honestly, some of it is genuinely good information. Let's start with what the video gets right. DeLauer accurately explains that creatine is stored throughout our bodies, primarily in our muscles with smaller amounts in our brain and other tissues, where it's available for immediate energy use. This is textbook physiology, and it's presented clearly. He also correctly identifies the creatine transporter, though he verbally says SLC688 when the actual name is SLC6A8. A minor slip, but the underlying mechanism he describes is accurate. The video also makes a solid point about sleep and stress affecting mitochondrial function, which is well supported by metabolic research. And when he mentions that carrying more muscle increases the calories you burn at rest, that's true, though the effect is more modest than many people assume, roughly 6 to 10 calories per pound of muscle per day, not the 50 calories sometimes claimed in fitness circles. He also touches on creatine's potential cognitive benefits, and there is legitimate research here, particularly showing improvements in executive function during sleep deprivation or in vegetarians who have lower baseline creatine levels. Now, here's where things get more complicated. Several claims in this video are presented with impressive specificity, but couldn't actually be verified. DeLauer cites a July 2024 systematic review showing those eye-catching numbers: 1.6 pounds of fat loss, 2.5 pounds of muscle gain, and a body fat percentage drop of about 0.88%. He also references an October 2024 study analyzing 23 trials. The problem is, these specific studies couldn't be located in PubMed or other major databases. Now, they might exist as preprints or in journals not yet indexed, but listeners should know these figures can't currently be verified against the actual source. Existing meta-analyses, like the well-regarded 2017 Chilibeck review, do show creatine benefits lean mass, but the effects are typically more modest, around 1 kilogram of lean mass over 12 weeks of resistance training. And importantly, some of that early muscle gain may actually be water retention in muscle tissue rather than true hypertrophy. The video also makes a specific claim about taking creatine with salt, suggesting it could increase muscle uptake by 47% because the creatine transporter is sodium dependent. The mechanism part is accurate. SLC6A8 does require sodium to function, but that's about how the transporter works at a basic level, not evidence that adding table salt to your creatine shake meaningfully boosts absorption in someone with normal sodium status. The 47% figure appears unsubstantiated, and research on enhancing creatine uptake has actually focused more on insulin and carbohydrate co-ingestion, not sodium. Similarly, the claims about anti-inflammatory effects and the recommendation of 7 to 10 grams daily specifically for those benefits lands in speculative territory. Standard dosing recommendations remain 3 to 5 grams per day for maintenance, based on the International Society of Sports Nutrition position stand. The higher dose isn't necessarily harmful, but the specific link to anti-inflammatory benefits lacks solid citation. The caffeine interaction deserves some nuance too. DeLauer advises against taking creatine with coffee, saying caffeine inhibits creatine absorption. The research here is actually mixed and somewhat controversial. One influential 1996 study suggested caffeine might negate some of creatine's effects, but it wasn't through absorption inhibition, and many subsequent studies have found no negative interaction for strength and power outcomes. Many athletes use both supplements successfully. Now for some genuine red flags. The most concerning claim is that women need 10 to 20% more creatine than men because their creatine stores are naturally higher. This actually inverts the science. Women typically have lower muscle creatine concentrations than men, roughly 70 to 80% of male levels. If anything, women might reach muscle saturation with similar or even lower absolute doses. This is a claim that could lead listeners to unnecessary oversupplementation. The description of mitochondria as leveraging quantum energy and almost teleporting protons is also significantly overstated. While quantum biology is a legitimate field, mitochondrial ATP production works through chemiosmosis, a well-understood classical biochemical process. Describing it as quantum teleportation isn't just poetic license. It's inaccurate in a way that might mislead viewers about what's actually happening in their cells. So what's the bottom line? This video contains genuinely useful foundational information about creatine, how it's stored, its basic mechanisms, and its established benefits for muscle and potentially cognition. However, it's layered with specific statistical claims from studies that can't currently be verified, dosing recommendations that go beyond established guidelines, and at least one claim about women's needs that directly contradicts the science. If you're interested in creatine supplementation, the core message that it's a well-researched supplement with real benefits is accurate. But for specific dosing and efficacy claims, stick with established sources like the International Society of Sports Nutrition position stands, and approach unverifiable study citations with healthy skepticism.